Migration is something that everybody will eventually do in Rise of Kingdoms. And this is one of those things that we have to get into because there's a right way to do it and there's definitely a bunch of wrong ways to do it. So we're going to go through exactly what to do as a player, what to look for in new kingdoms. Why would you migrate? We're going to go through migrating with a group or just by yourself. We're also going to go through all the logistics of how you set up your passports, how you treat your RSS, how you say goodbye to the kingdom you're in, all that stuff. This is your migration guide for Rise of Kingdoms. Hey everybody, I'm your boy War Daddy Chatsky. I put out videos all the time on Rise of Kingdoms, content all the time. I think I've done 320 videos and streams since November of 2024. That's 10 months, and we have just punched through the 50,000 subscriber threshold. We had a great stream last night, and if you enjoy these videos, if you enjoy the streams, throw a like on there. It really helps out the channel. We're growing our community, and our community has been something we are very proud of and very, very special. And if you would subscribe, it doesn't cost you anything. You can subscribe. You can hit the bell alert if you want to see my content as it happens. So this is the migration guide. Okay, this is something that people have to understand. It's hard to play this game for a long time without migrating. It's very rare, and it's really kind of a luxury if you get in a situation where you're in a kingdom and it turns out to be a really good kingdom, good leadership. Maybe you're in leadership and you never leave. I've seen players that have been in the same kingdom for 3 and 4 years, but the overwhelming majority of players will migrate. And this is a guide to help you out with the tools of migrating. Anytime you're in a kingdom, anytime you're playing with friends move on, you have other things go on in the kingdom, there's turnover in the leadership, it is really, really interesting and can be difficult to stay in the same kingdom. So for the first and foremost, we'll go through these different areas. We will go through all the different facets of migration, and this will be a great thing for you to use as a tool and something to kind of look at. The first thing we're going to talk about is reasons why you might want to migrate. Okay, there's all kinds of different reasons why. One of the most common reasons is the kingdom style. Either way, if the kingdom is more competitive and you play more casually, you get into some situations where kingdom require a lot of kill points and a lot of deads in KVK. And if that is the case and you're not able to attain those, then that might be a reason to migrate. Also, if the kingdom is too casual and you're more competitive and you want to enhance your account, your commanders, and you want to go get your kill points up, you want to go hammer your deads, and you really want to play this game at a competitive level, sometimes the kingdom you're in is not as competitive. So there's all kinds of different variations of kingdoms, and when it comes to the competitive level of it. And so with that, that's one of the reasons why, one of the big reasons why players move on. Also, a dying kingdom. If you're in a situation to where you look up at your alliance and a lot of people have migrated out, a lot of leaders have retired, and you've had a couple of KVK losses and people are just getting tired of the game, and you have a specific group move out. The next thing you know, you look up and you've only got 50 or 60 or 70 main accounts in the alliance. That's another reason why people will move out. The third reason is drama. Drama is an issue that will make you hate opening the game, whether it's drama with leadership, whether it's a drama kingdom. You get into Lost Kingdom chat and you got just toxic people in your kingdom just saying stupid stuff, or there's drama within infighting in your alliance. Stay away from drama. That's one of the big reasons why people are like, get me the hell out of here. I don't want to mess with it. So that is another reason why players will want to leave a kingdom. Okay. The fourth reason is new opportunities. I was a player that was growing my account, and I was a player that was playing in 2080. I was the R5. I was the king of 2080. And it was a really good A seed. It was more casual, but it was a really good A seed, and I wanted a new challenge. I was with my group, Peace, and a few others, and we decided to take on a new challenge. We went to an Imperium kingdom, and it was a new opportunity for us to go play at that level and in a kingdom that was really well known. And so there is also the community aspect. That is the last thing that we'll say on why players want to leave. You have to enjoy the community you're playing in. You put a lot of hours and a lot of time. A lot of people spend a lot of money. And those of you who don't spend as much money, the community, whether you spend money or not, however you play this game, the community is everything. I'm in 606 right now. It's one of the best communities in the game. It is wild how crazy the community is when it comes to the Discord and all that. So sometimes players look for new communities to go play in. And that's one of those things that players will change alliances to find a new community, or they have friends in another kingdom or something like that. So from that standpoint, it gives us an idea of why players want to migrate, why players might leave the kingdom that they're in. And so you've got kingdom style on the competition level. Either the kingdom's more competitive than you want to be, or you're more competitive than the kingdom wants to be. Sometimes it's a dying kingdom, sometimes it's a drama kingdom, and then sometimes you want new opportunities or a new community. The next thing that we're going to talk about is what to look for in a new kingdom. And that's one of those things that we get into where we're just like, okay, what do we want to look for in a new kingdom? That's a very easy question. Number one, we talked about it. Reasons why players want to leave kingdoms is the kingdom style, the competitive level of the kingdom. You can get into these different kingdoms and you can see in a lot of different areas, 606 is an Imperium kingdom. Okay. And it is very, very competitive. And so when you're looking for a new kingdom, you want to have a kingdom that fits your style, that fits your competitive level, to where you can attain the kingdom requirements. You can attain the expectation of the uptime on your account. You can meet all the goals that the kingdom you're going to might have. So you have to understand what the kingdom competitive level is. If you're a player that goes to 606, like in our kingdom, and you play the game really casually and you don't get on much to fight, and you fight kind of on your time and here and there, you're not going to reach the standards that 606 has. There's an expectation of the players that play in 606. The other thing that a lot of people look for is kingdom activity. Okay, that's one thing you look for in a new kingdom. And off season, this is off season right now. Look how many forts we got going. Like, it's wild. Like, we run forts like crazy. The Alliance chat is super active. This is off season. And so you want to look at the kingdom activity in off season, the social aspect to it, are events being done at a good level, as far as some of the in-game events, some of like Silk Road and some of these other events, Karak and some of these other events that you do as a kingdom, that you do as an alliance, is that if that stuff is really organized. And then the Discord activity. Every kingdom's going to have a Discord, especially if you're playing at the SOC level. And if that Discord is really active, especially in off season, then you know that that's a kingdom that is going to have good activity, not only in off season, but they're going to have it in fighting when they get into KVK. Okay. The other thing you look at is kingdom uptime and downtime. What kind of players are you going to play with? Are you going to play with players that are in the same uptime as you? Are you going to go to a kingdom that has a really bad downtime? And how do you contribute to that downtime? How do you help it, or how do you continue to perpetuate the downtime? Those are things you have to look at when it comes to migrating to a new kingdom. All right. And another thing, this will be kind of the fourth thing that you look at, the signs of good leadership. All right. Now that we can promote literally 12 R4s, you have to understand the leadership that of the kingdom you're going to. Coverage. When you get into fighting, do they have war leads that are on all the time, uptime and downtime? What are the roles of all the different people in leadership? Is the leadership team, is it a robust? Is it a big team? Is it a smaller team? Do one or two people just do everything? Those are things you have to consider when you're going to a kingdom, okay? What's their migration server look like? If you're wanting to play competitively and you want to go to an A-seed or an Imperium kingdom, they are gonna have a migration server. And if they have a migration server, you can see all the people that manage that. You can see the leaders that talk to you when you go into that. You can get an idea of how organized they are, and also how professional they are. I've seen it many, many times. When you get leaders in a kingdom that are kind of jerks and super toxic, then the kingdom's going to be toxic. Let's be real. Okay. And so you have to understand, and if you're into that, that's great. Go play in a kingdom where people are just crazy, lewd behavior, lewd humor, and toxic. Some people like that. Some people like it a little more professional and friendly. It's all different types of the way it works. But if the leaders understand that the leaders set the tone for how the alliance and how the kingdom is going to work. So that gives you an idea of the professionalism and how they do it. Also the professionalism of how organized they are. When we say professionalism, none of these people get paid. None of them get paid to do this, but they're exceptional when it comes to the organization, when it comes to their roles and responsibilities, and that's something you always got to look for, okay? How organized is the kingdom? Do they have NGEs that are fixed? Okay, do they have good communication? Are they constantly in communication with their players? What to do, how to do it? Hey, we're going into KVK. Hey, here's a guide on your crystal tech. Hey, we're running these types of events. We're doing these different things. If you have good communication, that's something that you want to look for in a new kingdom. And so you also have to consider the requirements. Part of the reason why in off season that 606 we have so many forts running is because we have fort requirements. Like you are, if you're signing up to this kingdom, the expectation is you as a player need to run forts. Speaking of which, I need to run a fort right now. And so when it comes to that, you run forts to help your kingdom's RSS, to help the speed ups. You want alliance chest. The best way to get alliance chest in the kingdom is to run forts nonstop. And to do it, watch, like this thing might already be attacked, but it's not. So hey, I got a level 10 fort. There we go. So you have to run these things because when it comes to the gift level, you get these gifts as you load up the forts. Okay, look how many forts there are. I mean, we're just hammering forts nonstop. It really helps with this gift level. Every time you get an alliance chest, you get good speed up 16 hours and you can put that in your inventory. So that's another thing to think about. Also fighting requirements when it comes to how you're gonna fight in KVK. What are the dead requirements? What do you do in KVK? What are some of the different aspects that when you fight a KVK, what's their requirement? Any good competitive KVK is gonna have a requirement. If you're dead weight, if you don't fight and you don't send troops to die, you're gonna understand that the expectation of the kingdom, they're probably going to ask you to leave if that's the case. So you have to understand that. Also requirements. What do they want you to fill out forms and polls? I'm in 606. We do forms all the time when it comes to how many speed ups do you have? How much RSS do you have? The leadership of the kingdom wants to know all the players and where they're at when they go into KVK. How many speed ups does most of the players have? Are we in a good position to go fight for a long time? So those are some of the things that you're going to see with requirements. All right. Another thing that's really important, you want to talk to R4s. You want to talk to, if you're planning on coming to a kingdom and you know any R4s or you know any members, talk to them. Ask them what the kingdom's like. You know, get an idea. Come in with eyes wide open to where you have an understanding of how things work in a kingdom. And that's how it all plays out. Okay. Also, the win-loss record is something that might be important to you as a player. Okay. I'm not really that amused by wins and losses at all. And so when it comes to that, the best way to see how well a kingdom is operated and run is to see what happens after a loss in KVK. Okay, one of the reasons why I like 606 so much is that it kept growing and getting stronger as it was losing KVKs. That means that they're doing something right. And so if you're looking to go to a kingdom and they've lost the KVK and players are leaving and players are not happy, that is a sign that it might not be the best place to go, but it might be an opportunity for you as well. So you just got to understand and have that awareness when it comes to how things are made. Listen, people go to kingdoms sometimes because they love the KVK wins. And that's like the wrong reason to go to a kingdom. Okay, you don't go to a kingdom just to go get KVK wins, because sometimes you're not going to get fights. And if a leadership team, all they want to do is Diplo wins and get easy wins for KVK, then that's not a place I want to go. I want fights. I want our leadership to set us up for super hard KVKs, for balanced KVKs that you got to really fight hard to go win in. And if you lose, it doesn't matter. You're having fun with a group and in a community, and that works out okay. 606 has had their fair share of losses, but they've kept getting stronger and stronger, and now one of the better kingdoms at the Imperium level in the game. And so that's what you have to understand when it comes to trying to pick that kingdom, okay? You also have to understand the direction. It is very clear and obvious what the kingdom's direction is. Akina is the R5. If I have questions, I ask him, I ask some of the R4s that are on council with him. What's the direction? When you're thinking about going to a kingdom, ask, what's the direction of the kingdom? How big do you want to get to? Do you want to be a B seed? Do you want to go to A seed? Do you want to go to Imperium? Like, what are we trying to get done as a kingdom? What's your direction? And if they can't answer you intellectually, they can't answer you with good awareness of where they want to go, then you have to understand that if you have leaders that have no idea what they want to be as a kingdom, then the kingdom is going to have a tough time, no matter what goals that it has. Okay. You also want to think about Ark and OL. That's something that comes into play a lot when it comes to a kingdom. When you have Ark of Osiris, do they have teams? Do they have different teams and different farms so everybody can play at different times? Because a kingdom is always going to have players playing at different times. All right. Another thing to look for in a kingdom is data tracking. You know, how do they track the data during KVK? What do the kill points look like? Do they use pro kingdoms? Do they use some of these hero scrolls or some of these other facets when it comes to tracking the KVK data? Do they do their own internal data and they want to track kill points? They want to track deads throughout KVK. They want to track it at the end of KVK. That's also a really good sign. In addition to that, in 606, we've got tracking for all of our gear. We've got tracking for all of our armaments. They want to know who the rally leaders are. They want to understand who the garrisons are and how they intertwine one another, who they need to go recruit to fill in a spot for an archer garrison or an archer rally or a cav garrison. That is something always to look forward to. And then lastly, one of the things you look for in a kingdom is, do they have a bad reputation? Do they have a good reputation? Are they known for maybe betraying? Okay. King's Codex is one of the best, places to go. They have a betrayal channel where they go through and they sift out and they give kind of a court. They give both sides an opportunity. If there's a grieving or a KVK request, betrayal request, they put it in there. They assess it. You can go in there in the King's Codex and see if kingdoms have been accused of betrayal before in the past, and whether or not that's a kingdom you want to go to. But also, do they pre-diplo? Do some kingdoms come in here because they love these freaking stars and all the wins so much? Do they pre-diplo? Pre-diplo basically means before they get into KVK, they know who's going to be in the KVK, the other kingdoms, and they pre-ally. That's a no-no. You do not do that. You don't pre-ally in a KVK. Some kingdoms do it. And if that's something that you want, then fine, but a lot of players don't want to do it. So look out for a bad reputation, betrayals, a kingdom that pre-diplos for wins. You're not fooling anybody. And those kingdoms that do that and pre-diplo wins, those are kingdoms I don't want to have anything to do with. I want zero to do with. You don't care about fighting. You don't care about actually fighting a fighting game, a war game. You just care about going to get wins. And so that's one of those things that you have to look at, okay? The next area that we'll get into, and this is really, really interesting because people have to understand how this works sometimes, is, are you migrating solo or with a group? This is something that people always get themselves in trouble with, okay? Listen, I understand more than anything that migrating with a group is really, really good as far as being able to take a group of friends and go somewhere. You have to understand that going solo is much easier. You can get into the kingdom you want to get into by going solo. It's much easier to finally identify the kingdom that fits you perfectly if you're going solo, or if you're going in tandem, maybe with 2 or 3 people. That's either solo or tandem, very easy to do. If you go with a big group, you got to understand it's fun to take your friends and it's fun to take a group to a kingdom. But so many times you have to understand the pitfalls, because odds are there's going to be a player or two that are very, very casual. They don't make the kingdom requirements. And you're in an awkward situation after the first KVK where the leaders come to you and your group and say, so-and-so and so-and-so in your group is going to be asked to leave. And then you're stuck in that situation like, okay, what do we do? 2 friends of our group have to leave. And so it's really, really difficult to do groups sometimes. If you're going to do a group, just make sure that your group knows that they are representing all of you in the group. And if you're going to go with a group and you're going to go fight in the KVK, they have to understand that their actions reflect on the entire group. And if somebody gets asked to leave in that group, it could fragment the group. Other players want to leave because their buddies are leaving, and you find out who maybe really wants to play the game competitively. So just a little bit of understanding on how the groups work, okay? It's really, really hard sometimes when you go into this. And one of the things you want to do when you do a group is have a data sheet. Okay, you want to have a data sheet of all the players you're planning on moving in. You want to communicate that data sheet well, because the kingdom has to be prepared to take you. Like, we were looking at a group coming into 606. I popped all my bags. to help with the RSS that we're going to have to produce to get that big group in. And it went far down the line to where we're moving around shells, we're accepting farms, we're doing all the things to prep for a group, and then the group doesn't come. And so you have to understand that if you're gonna, you have to be transparent as a group, that if you're gonna come or you're gonna think about going to a kingdom, you gotta be real honest with that kingdom. Because the last thing you want is a kingdom doing a whole bunch of things to get you in, to accept you as a group into the kingdom, and then you don't come for whatever reason it might be. So you have to be really transparent with that and do not lead a kingdom on. And that's something that you got to think about when you're going as a group. Okay. Some of the, another aspect of this is when you go into any kind of situation where you go into any kind of situation to where you are going to a kingdom, you have to understand that you are going to be interviewed, but at the same time as a player, you interview them. That's one of the main things that we talk about as a player going to any kingdom. You have to interview them. They're interviewing you, but you're interviewing them. What's their off-season activity? Great question to ask. What kind of requirements do you have on these forts that are being run all over the place? Okay, how many alliance chests do you get per day based on forts? Okay, and like we talked about with the gifts on the alliance chests, you can ask that. Like you guys do, like 5, 6, 7, 8 alliance chests a day. How's your activity? Here is a word of the wise to free to play and low spenders. Never, ever, ever ask about gold chests. Never. If you are a player and you're trying to get into a kingdom and you are a free to play or a lower spender, if you ask about how many gold chests there are, it's for any good kingdom, it's an instant no. You're not coming here. You're coming here for the wrong reasons. Okay, so never ask about gold chests if you are not contributing to the gold chests. Now, if you are a spender and you're going to spend gold chests every week, you absolutely have every right to ask and interview the kingdom, to ask the migration people or the officers, like, hey, I'm spending a lot of money. What do the gold chests look like? Am I adding to that? Okay, and they're definitely have to be honest with you and tell you so you understand going in what that activity level is. Okay, and then also a huge question to ask when you interview the people you're going to, when you're asking them questions, is how do you manage your dead weight? Dead weight is the number one thing that'll kill a kingdom. If you don't manage it well, if players AFK or they quit playing the game or they're not on as much and you just let them into the kingdom and they're just sitting at a high power, then it's really going to hurt you. It's going to hurt the kingdom. You're going to have to fight and carry their weight. And so that's why we call it dead weight. You ask the leaders, how do you handle your dead weight? It's very, very important. Okay, and so from there, those are the different dynamics and aspects of why people migrate, what you look for in a new kingdom. Are you migrating solo or with a group? And then what do you ask when you're interviewing them? The last thing we'll get into are the logistics. This is very important, okay? And put this up here. Logistics are a big deal when it comes to Rise of Kingdoms. Now, when I say logistics, you have to be prepared. Let me tell you the first and foremost what's going to happen. You have these in the Alliance shop. We have no inventory in the Alliance shop, but at the very top, this is just for you. These are passports that are put in the Alliance shop every day or every week. You can get one per week, and you have to understand, once it gets to 5, you can't get any more. So you want to buy that every week. You want to prepare to migrate. Make sure you buy this every week so it always replenishes. You should have plenty of credits. You're joining one troops. You're doing all the different things to get the Alliance credits that you can go buy this passport once a week. And so that's one of the main things you want to understand. You want to save passports. You definitely want to save passports. You want to be ready to go. Okay. The biggest piece of advice I give players is that you've got to save passports, and you do not want to spend your Alliance currency here that you have, your silver currency. You don't want to spend it all on teleports when you're looking up and you have no Alliance currency, you have no passports, and something happens. You always want to be prepared to migrate immediately if something happens. If all hell breaks loose and you have crazy infighting or civil war or something goes on with a kingdom, you have to be able to move very, very quickly and immediately. Sometimes you get into those situations where you're fighting a KVK, and a lot of players in the KVK have no idea, but leadership might be planning on retiring. or two big groups might be planning on leaving. And if that happens, then you got to be ready to move your account. You got to be ready to have the passports to be able to move pretty quickly if you need to, or if something happens, you have fallout with somebody or huge drama, you always have to be ready to move very, very quickly. Okay. And another thing that you have to understand when it comes to the logistics is that if you are in KVK, okay, and you are in KVK and you're fighting and doing all those things, you have now a situation to where you have a Hall of Heroes. You get half the troops back that you kill, but now you can reach S and S plus level KVK to where you can get not only half the troops, but you can get another 5% or another 10%. And you also have rewards. But if you decide you're going to leave in the middle of a KVK, or the KVK is lost and you don't want to wait 2 weeks and you're not going to get very many rewards, you migrate in the middle of KVK like that, you lose that extra percentage of troops. It just happened to Addie. She was moving here and she had a whole bunch of deads on her account, and then she got here and all of a sudden her troop return wasn't anywhere near what it was gonna be. The same thing happened with Peace and some of these other 960 players that left before the end of their KVK, and she should have had more troops coming back to her, but she only got half. And then you also forfeit those rewards when it comes to those KVKs. So just understand that. And so another thing to think about is when you're migrating into a new kingdom, you have to be prepared, okay? You have all these different alliances out here that have farms. And if you have an idea that you're going to a kingdom in advance, then you maybe want to move farms there if it's open. All these people have names here. There's Trauma. There's a whole bunch of people in here. Siori's in here. You have all these farm alliance or farm accounts that are there for the main accounts that they play. I've got farms in some of these, and so you want to prep your RSS. You have to. You got to prep your RSS when it comes to migrating to a new kingdom. You want to make sure that that new kingdom has accounts there for your farms. And you could right now, you might not migrate for like a month, but you can already have accounts in a kingdom that you're going to farming nonstop, just nonstop, getting ready when you get there, because you are going to lose all of your RSS anytime you migrate. And so that brings us to our next thing. When you migrate, people have to understand something. When you decide you're going to migrate and you go through here, you cannot take your RSS with you. You just can't take it with you. When you migrate, you're going to be stuck in a situation to where you have to delete the RSS of open bags that you have. Now, I know I'm going to be here for a while, so I went ahead and opened up my bags, anticipating a group that's coming in to help them out with the RSS. And so from there, you have to understand that you cannot take those RSS with you. Okay, so it's very, very important when you migrate, because you're going to have to delete that. You have to get resources going wherever you're going. Okay, and before you migrate, you have to understand something else. When you come down here and you got the merchant shop, before you migrate, you hit all of these. It doesn't matter, because you're going to be wasting your RSS anyways or giving it away. You make sure and just hit all of these RSS tokens, every single one of them, no matter what it is, because you're going to spend that RSS anyways. You're going to delete it, so why not just go get a bunch of this stuff, regardless of if it's worthless or not? Just be sure you go spend on that. In addition, you want to fire up big long-term training, because you want to spend that RSS to use troop reserves, and you can get the training going in the kingdom before you migrate, because you want to spend the RSS it takes to train those troops. I got a 50K expander going on right now. For pre-KVK, but if I'm migrating, I want a 50K expander going on my training, just so I can spend the RSS wisely. I don't have to waste it, and that's one of those things that you got to understand as well. Another logistic: fill your hospital. Get your power down as much as possible. It'll help you with your passports. It'll help you because each increment of 5 million power, you have to spend more passports to migrate. So that's one thing people have to understand when it comes to migrating, is that you want your hospital filled, and when the hospital is filled, it drops your power. The burden on the kingdom taking you isn't that high. Plus, you can spend you want to make sure you hit heal, because you can spend the resources on healing your hospital and then getting the helps from the kingdom before you leave. And so another thing to think about when it comes to logistics is the references, okay? you want to make sure you've got good references, people who can speak highly of you, because your reputation is going to get around. No matter who is recruiting you, if any good kingdom worth their salt is looking at you and saying, hey, is this guy or gal a good player? Is it a good player to bring in? They'll ask some of the people who know you. They'll ask some of the people who have been in your kingdom. The funniest thing I get from players is when a player is either toxic or goes rogue or is not a very good player, has a bad reputation, and they apply to a kingdom and they don't think that kingdom, who's worth their salt, they don't think that kingdom is going to inquire about them. Talk to their old leadership, talk to their old members who know the player. And if there's nothing good to say about that player, they sit there like, I don't know why I didn't get accepted into this new alliance. I don't know why I didn't get accepted into this new kingdom. Well, think about everybody that's going to be talking about your references, about the people who know you. That's what we do. That's what any good kingdom does. If a player wants to come into our kingdom, it's like, okay, where are they from? Who were their leaders? What happened there? So that's always something to think about, okay? The next thing we'll talk about, and this is the last thing we'll talk about when it comes to this guide, and don't forget, we've got everything in the bottom to help you guys understand the different chapters and aspects of what's going on when it comes to the arrival of a new kingdom. So with that, when arriving, do's and don'ts. When you go to a new kingdom, there's a few do's and don'ts that you got to be able to handle. You want to be active and friendly. Don't be a jerk. We've talked about this many times. This is from a player's perspective. When you come into a new kingdom and you're on Alliance chat, dude, do not be a jerk. Okay, be friendly. First impressions are always very important because these are a whole bunch of people you don't know. And so you don't want to be a jerk about it. You don't want to be braggadocious. You don't want to come in here and just start sharing your commander stuff because you think it's great with the Alliance. Don't listen. Everybody's playing this game. Everybody has good accounts. Okay. You don't have to worry about showing off if you've got a really good armaments or something. Now, if people ask you, or if leaderships ask you like, hey, can you post your cav equipment or cav armaments? That's something that you can think about. And in addition to that, you just want to make sure you're doing this right and not be a jerk. Another thing, when you're going into a new kingdom, you come into your monument. When you go into your monument, you're going to have these things here every time you go into a new kingdom. There's going to be these different rewards that you get that the kingdom has attained, or the Alliance has attained, when it came to the very first time the Alliance was fighting for a lost temple in home kingdom. So you want to make sure and grab, there's a whole bunch of gems. I think 3,000 or 4,000 gems you can get out of this thing. You want to make sure you do that when you go into a new kingdom. You also want to read markers. Okay, don't be ignorant. Read markers. Okay, K9 put a 50% training rune on here. Okay, there's a gold marker. Okay, I can go to the pit and I can gather. Is there a limit? There's a 50K limit on going into this pit when you gather. So you got to understand exactly how some of these markers work out. I'll take my filter mode off. So you got a gold marker, you got a 1 troop daily 20K. You want to get 20K credits every day. I got 5,000. Every day I refresh that and get 20K credits. It helps out everything. So read markers, understand how it works. If there's a marker for 1+1 forts, which I'm pretty sure we have, that's really good. Hey, there's a Guardians marker. Like, you got to read markers when you go into a new kingdom. Understand that they'll have perpetual markers up all the time to remind you about 1 troops, to remind you about the pits, and to remind you that when you do forts, you do 1+1. Okay, when we say 1+1 on forts, that means only one other person joins your fort rally. All right, and that way you spread it out, you get more forts destroyed that way, and now we got 15 forts going. Okay, and so that's kind of how that thing works. Also, when you give feedback, you come into a kingdom and you are seeing how they operate, you're seeing how they run their pits or their forts, you're seeing how they do their ranking up of officers. You see how the officers are active or not active, or you're seeing how war voice is going. You're seeing how, war leading is going. Listen, you might be really smart and you used to be a leader in your old kingdom, but when you give the feedback, do it respectfully. Don't call people out for stupid stuff, especially if you're new. If you're new, just fly under the radar. Be cool. Don't be a jerk. You can always give good feedback, and any good kingdom worth their salt wants feedback, but be respectful when you do it. Maybe pull somebody in the PM and say, hey, I noticed that on your pit, not a lot of people can join your pit because you don't have a limit on there. Maybe it's a 50K limit. Would that help? And be respectful when you give that feedback. And so another thing that you have to think about that's very, very important, take the time to get to know people. I've seen it happen many, many times where people get into alliances, okay? They're either too busy, they don't care enough, they don't really care about the community, and they never get to really know people. I have known people and played with people in this game that have literally played in the same alliance with somebody, and after 3 years, they have no idea who that person is. They have no clue. I've literally had to tell people, like, when they're like, who is this so-and-so guy? And it's like, dude, you've been in the same alliance with him for 3 years. Are you kidding me? You've talked to him on AC. You've talked to him on voice. Do you not even care? Do you not even know? Do you not even want to get to know people? And so just understand that that is not the way to do it. If you're going to join a kingdom and you're going to be in on the community, you got to get to know everybody. Be friendly and kind to everybody. And the last thing that I'll say is that the grass is always greener, okay? You're not going to like everybody in this kingdom. If you're one of those perfectionists that says, I need to go to the perfect kingdom, it has to be perfect, you're going to find something wrong with the kingdom. It's just going to happen. You're going to find somebody you don't like or don't get along with. That's going to happen. Okay, so don't have this grass is always greener mentality, or you'll never find a good kingdom. You'll just go from kingdom to kingdom, and you'll always find something wrong with the kingdom. You're always going to find something wrong with ARC, or you'll find something wrong with how R4s are, or you don't get along with a member, or you don't get along with a leader, or something happens. Do not fall into that trap, okay? There's never going to be a perfect kingdom where everything is absolutely perfect. There's always going to be something that is not an ideal situation for you. But just understand that you don't have to like everybody to be in an alliance and be in the kingdom and have a good time with it. You don't have to like everybody. You know, if you do, I generally like everybody, but if you don't like somebody, just as long as you guys respect one another, it doesn't matter. Teams are built from people in all facets of life, sports and everything else. Teams are built with people who maybe don't like each other, but they respect one another, and they're not going to be catty. They're not going to be, completely petty with one another. Just be respectful, even if you don't like somebody. And that's the final thing I will give you when it comes to joining a kingdom. Again, migrating is not easy. It is very, very tough. And you want to make the right decision. So hopefully this guide helped you out a little bit, what to ask, what to not ask, what to look for, why people migrate, the do's and don'ts of migrating, how you want to set up your logistics and your passports and your RSS and going to a new kingdom and all that stuff. And if you enjoyed the video, throw a like on here. Consider subscribing. It doesn't cost you anything. This is a migration guide that everybody needs to watch if you're ever thinking about migrating. And so some people might not ever watch this until they're ready to migrate, and it might be in a year. You can come back and watch this video and figure out what's the best way to do it. And so hopefully it gives you guys some more insight on migrating. Hopefully it lets everybody understand exactly how this thing works. And with all that being said, I hope you have a great day, broskies.